Welcome back. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull, once again joined by Zepsi. We both do some contract work for the HBAR Foundation, but we don't do these weekly updates in any official capacity. We're just coming to you personally to give you the latest in the Hedera ecosystem. Welcome, Zep.
How's it going, Brandon?
It's going good. It's been a fun week to watch, whether it's Davos, whether it's the high volume use case we had come online. But as always, none of this is financial advice. Use it for entertainment or educational purposes only. So, Zep, the first thing that I want to get into is, of course, we talked about it last week, the high volume use case that came online. It's been chugging along all week. And I actually got a hold of one of our favorite people to listen to in the Hedera space, Rob Allen. So listen to his thoughts on this high volume use case. Rob, what are your initial reactions to the large high TPS use case that was recently unleashed and the Hedera network taking that increased throughput and not breaking a sweat?
Yeah, hi Brandon. It's awesome, isn't it? For the longest time, we've been talking about this. The community has been waiting with bated breath. It's been over a year since Mance mentioned the infamous step change, which the true believers amongst us knew was coming. But it's great to see it and see it in a sustained way. It's one thing seeing thousands of TPS on testnet. It's another thing to see a short burst mainnet test. But to see something like this and be able to talk about it, right? The naysayers, the other projects, the other chains who could discount the capability of Hedera just by looking at 2 or 3 TPS and then ignoring it, can no longer ignore it. 2 million transactions an hour, 50 million a day. I mean, that's crazy. Did someone say that I think that was more than Cardano had done in its entire lifetime? So there's some great media potential. There's lots of good community, feel-good stuff that comes out of it. But actually, fundamentally, this is what Hedera is about. And it's just one use case from one governing council member. Remember, that's a governing council member. They're not the first to have gone into production with a Hedera-based system. But this is the high throughput one that we always knew was going to come. And is now here. So, the huge question is what's next? And, that one use case will scale over time and then more and more will come. And I suspect, that effect will then create a snowball effect that gathers over the next, 1-2 quarters. And then obviously 1 to 2 years, we're going to be in a very different space because, like you said, it just doesn't break a sweat.
Yeah, it's impressive what we've seen. You mentioned the media, and I think that's one thing that Hederians need to consider is there hasn't even been any press releases from that governing council member. There hasn't been any press around this at all. So the only people that know about this are the people in the Hedera corners. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the crypto community reacts. Well, speaking of that, what should the reaction of the crypto sphere be to Hedera going from saying what their capabilities are to actually showing the world what the network is capable of?
Yeah, I mean, it's time to wake up, right? Hedera has been a very easy network to discount by the wider crypto sphere. A lot of misinformation is still out there. The choices, the design choices from the early days, which were absolutely correct for a grown-up network that needs governance and control. And I think everything that's happened in 2022 bears out the decisions that Manson, Lehman, and Brett and the other founders made in the early days around the patenting, which is now obviously being released, the open sourcing, which is now fully open source. And the token distribution models, which need to be controlled over time to maintain security of the network if it's going to survive for 100 years or more. So all those decisions, I think, for those of us who are patient with a long-term strategic view, are being borne out. And what it means for us, the HBARians, the Hedera community, the Hedera ecosystem, is that we can now, as we always have, but now be able to say, well, look, this is the right way to have done it. We will continue to do it in the right way. We'll continue to govern the network, which is the next generation of the internet, and trust us to continue to do that in a world where trust is very hard to find sometimes, as we've seen. The other projects, I mean, this is the time now, as it always has been for Hedera, to be not only magnanimous, but also to be able to be inclusive. We know that there won't be one chain to rule them all. The best technology doesn't always win. And interconnectedness, interoperability is how systems grow and scale. The early days of the internet, when the walled gardens broke down, that's when the internet became interoperable and scaled. Same with mobile payment systems. Same with every single system that goes through its early stage and then scales through open APIs, through interconnectivity, etc. So we need to be able to talk to the other communities, talk to the other chains, as we continue to do with the foundation and the rest of the ecosystem, to demonstrate. And now we can demonstrate, and now we can show and point to these massive benefits of working with Hedera, and be inclusive and allow for assets to be bridged across networks, for the right technologies to be chosen for the right reasons. And I actually think one of the core benefits of using Hedera is as a message bus, as a communications system, as a layer zero, if you like, that all the other chains can use because it's trusted and it doesn't and it scales so wonderfully. So the ability for Hedera to actually be so many things to different systems is its superpower, I believe. The network services are at such a low level that it can be used almost like a message queue in old school terms, or it can be could provide the sorts of capability that we're seeing built in terms of full Web3 protocols, DeFi, and as we've discussed before, the evolution of NFTs, so the movement of assets between different chains, and ultimately, I think, as global financial infrastructure for things like micropayments and other high throughput capability for the common good of the world.
Completely agree. Again, you have some great insights there. And I think that's a great point to make. And it's something that the Hederians should take to heart is there's going to be pushback against this, right? There's going to be people that are threatened by it, but we just need to do what we do best and just be really welcoming, be patient, because the proof is in the pudding at this point. But Rob, thank you so much for coming by and giving us your insights. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure as always, Brandon.
It was great to see, Rob double down on that. He's always the best person to listen to talk. But I think what's particularly interesting there is this idea of Hedera as an L1 that we all obviously firmly believe and is obviously being reaffirmed at the moment is going to be one of the leading ledgers that comes out of this space. But one of the leading ledgers is something to take into consideration there. And, there are other layer ones, there's other protocols, DeFi protocols. We've seen Pangolin come over recently to Hedera that will be coexisting. And I think it's really important that from this year onwards that we really try and forge those relationships with other communities, other strong communities, other strong protocols, because, they're doing interesting stuff, we're doing interesting stuff, and we can all grow together to achieve the same goal. And, obviously on Hedera, on Twitter, we've seen the NFT community do this fantastically. They've done great getting Solana people over and Ethereum people over. And I hope that we can all mirror that with our other dApps as well. So yeah, keep up the great work, everyone.
Yeah, no question about that. The entire crypto community is definitely stronger together. Another thing, while we're talking about Rob, we saw a story come out talking about the Australian National Bank coming out with a stablecoin. And it mentioned that they're looking to initially build maybe their proof of concept with Ethereum and Algorand. Rob knows everything that's going on down there in Australia, and he actually checked into it. They are looking at their proof of concept on Ethereum. They aren't looking at Algorand. So that was just a miscommunication, misunderstanding, whatever. But of course, now Rob's going to be getting to work. And just like he took ANZ, the fourth largest bank in Australia, and got them to move from Ethereum over to Hedera, we're going to hope that the National Bank makes that same move. And if anybody can do it, it's certainly Rob.
Definitely. I feel sorry for the Algorand community at the moment. They've had a bit of a rough ride over the last week with the tweet from the CEO of the foundation and stuff. It's obviously very annoying for them that a different news publication picks it up and just misunderstood it. It was just an unfortunately poor piece of journalism, I suppose. And yeah, I hope shout out to the Algorand community. They're a great bunch.
Yeah, and it's great technology. I think it's actually one of our top competitors, if not the top competitor for Hedera. So, shout out to them. They're doing some great work, and I hope we can work together in the future. And Zeb, while we are talking about that high volume use case, initially I was a little bit concerned because, when we did that test back in November and they were doing 500 transactions per second, our time to consensus increased from about 4.8 seconds to about 5.3 seconds. So I thought we might see something similar, but after the last update, we actually saw the time to consensus come down. And even when the high volume use case came online, still, we stayed really low. It got a little bit volatile, but it stayed low. So I got with a couple of the members of the engineering team at Swirls Labs, Lazar, and actually Lazar was the number 3 or number 4 employee with Swirled. So right after Lehman and Mance, and I think there was somebody else who might have left, and then Lazar came on board. And then we also talked to Cody, another engineer with Swirled Labs. So let's listen to what they have to say about what they're doing to reduce the time to consensus. Lazar, it's been noticed since the Hedera network update last Thursday that the average time to consensus has dropped significantly. What's changed?
Well, a lot actually. We replaced the whole gossip algorithm completely with a completely new algorithm. And it's an algorithm we are still refining, so we can even expect even more drops in the future.
Oh, awesome. Cody, do you have anything you'd like to add?
It's just really exciting to see this go live. This is something we've been talking about internally for a year. We've had the code written for many, many months. And it just takes so long to test and get confidence that it's going to be robust when we actually deploy it. So really excited to see it working in practice.
Absolutely. So since this upgrade, we've seen a very large use case come online, and there's been increased volatility in the time to consensus, albeit around a very low average. Can you give us some insight about what we're seeing there?
We are definitely monitoring the increased volatility and time to finality. At the time, we don't think it's related to the increased volume. This is a very big coincidence. We turned on the new algorithm. There are still some rough edges. We saw the volatility, and a few hours later, the high TPS suddenly turned on from Atma.io. So it's definitely something we're aware of and we're monitoring, and we do expect to address that in future updates, hopefully very soon.
Good to hear. So, Lazar, this is an improvement to the Gossip protocol, not to be confused with part of Hedera's secret sauce, Gossip about Gossip. From my understanding, most DLTs use Gossip protocols. So could this improvement help the entire space, or is it just applicable to Hashgraph?
Unfortunately, one of the downsides of this job is that there is so much stuff going on in Hedera, I don't have enough time to actually get myself familiar with other gossip protocols of other DLTs. But what I can say that our gossip protocol is probably more well-suited for graph-based DLTs. So maybe blockchain-based DLTs might not make use of this algorithm, but maybe some graph-based ones could.
I understand. That's awesome. So you guys are working on the core Hashgraph algorithm. It sounds like you have some really exciting things coming in the future. I hope we can get you back when you start to implement them.
Well, I would like to be back.
Of course. Thank you.
And we should bring Kelly next time as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. Sounds good. Thank you again for coming.
All right. Thanks.
So Zeb, what do you think about the network performance since we've had this high volume use case come online?
Well, I mean, it's been fantastic. I think we peaked at about 8.7k TPS, which is what came through on Metrica. It's an unfathomable amount of transactions in a second. It's actually, I can't wrap my head around how much that is. But our throttle is 10,000, and the whole point the throttle is there is so that we can lift it as demand, desires it, as demand needs it. And so I wonder what's going to happen. Obviously the average TPS is considerably lower, still at, 500, 600 TPS, whatever it is, a staggering amount, the most in the industry. But when we do start hitting those peaks, and maybe if it does go up to 10 or whatever it is, I wonder if that throttle will have to be lifted slightly for that, or if we'll just go by the average TPS. I'll be excited to hear that. But in terms of performance, consensus, time to finality gone down, TPS higher than any other ledger on the market, and the consensus, the hash graph hasn't broken a sweat. And I think this is just finally, we can finally point people at this, at realtps.com, and show them the power of Hedera. And, we even had that, beyond just the, TPS of the HTS or the HTS. We've even seen recently the Phantom Talk put out that diagram that compared the speed of our DEXs. So we've got the fastest consensus in terms of the Hedera consensus service, Hedera token service, but our DEXs on our Solidity smart contract service are also the fastest. I'm pretty prepared to now be able to say with confidence and substance to back it up that Hedera really is best in class for tech. And there's other brilliant ledgers, of course, like we said, but we're really starting to see the power of the hash graph in action.
So, Zeb, I actually had the same question as you did about seeing that 8,000 TPS hit as a spike, and I reached out to Lehman to see what his thoughts were on it, and he actually mentioned that those quick spikes aren't an issue, so they aren't really looking at bumping up the throttle at this point, but maybe they will in the future. But those spikes are okay. They're more looking at the average right now, so that's good to see. So the other big news we had this week, of course, is Davos. Zeb, what are your thoughts been from what we've seen coming out of Davos?
I mean, we were excited last week in our last weekly update, but my expectations have been exceeded. To see how packed the Hedera house has been this whole time, but also the caliber of individuals in there. Obviously we've got our governing council. We've got Avery Dennison, who had their fantastic Atma.io scarf, which Max Walker-Williams put out a demo on. We had IBM there, of course. We had UCL, who came out with their report to say that the entire Hedera network uses about the same amount of energy as a single house, the average single house in the US, I believe. We saw ServiceNow do their demos, and we saw so many of our council there. And then alongside that, we saw figures from Credit Suisse that were hanging around in the Hedera house, figures from American Express that were hanging around the Hedera house. We saw the Hashgraph Association making deals out there. We saw some incredible demos, not just within our ecosystem, but some of the other regenerative finance use cases. We saw Solid World come out with their announcement, which we'll get into shortly. But I mean, the Hedera is in the right place on that boulevard. Everybody knows the term blockchain now. Everyone's curious about it. And to be able to see all of those council members on the front screen of the Hedera house, the curiosity that obviously has drove has been amazing. And, the reason why something like FTX happened was because of poor governance, poor internal governance. And now that, we can use that to show that on the complete flip side of that, still within Web3, you can have a completely professional governance model. And, there are lots of ledgers with great tech, but in the end, I think governance is going to come out on top to really ensure the longevity. And Davos really showed that to the world. And I mean, obviously, we've seen a lot of effects since then. We've seen Hedera trending, HBAR trending. Hedera was the top influencer, the top 7 influencer for COP27. It's fantastic, really fantastic.
Yeah, speaking of the stuff that's coming out of Davos, I saw the Blockchain Journal, and I think his name is David Berlin, was putting out all kinds of stuff around Davos. And one of the things that he caught was an interview with Avery Dennison, and they did a fantastic job. So I just wanted to show real quick what they came out with in their interview.
You're talking about what Avery Dennison is doing with blockchain technology. Welcome to Blockchain Journal to have this interview. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
So, Neil, you guys, Avery Dennison is a big company. How big is Avery Dennison?
Multinational. We're about an $8 billion business, Fortune 500. So, relatively sizable.
No small potatoes there.
No.
And for a Fortune 500 company, you guys are actually doing some work with blockchain. Is that right?
Absolutely. So, we're taking the traceability of supply chains. We're understanding what products, what comprises of that product, and then as it moves through that supply chain, we're giving that immutability, that confidence to the consumer that what I say my product it is really made of that, and the impacts it has made potentially to the environment through CO2, the ability to decarbonize and have that auditability, that traceability, and that transparency, which is then linked to a blockchain that we can have the confidence to say what we have said is happening has really happened. We don't have to search too hard to see examples perhaps of companies that maybe they thought what was happening upstream in their supply chain was true. Maybe the things that they have reported they wholly believed. But the ability to have that auditable traceability piece to then convey the confidence to the customer, you've got it in one, is what the interest in the blockchain is for us.
Is the data that you're putting in this Atma.io connected cloud, is that available to everybody throughout that chain? Is that the business model here?
Yes. So as we collect all of that information in a GS1 compliant language, so I have been made, I have been shipped, I have been received, all of these things, all of these events sit in the connected product cloud. As the sneaker manufacturer, using your example, I have access to all of that information. What we then can do quite uniquely is by giving a consumer-led digital trigger, which is typically NFC or QR, I have the ability then to tap or to scan that trigger, and then based on the story which I need to tell as my brand, I can convey that information based on the carbon impact, for instance, of this product, and then crucially what we are doing as a business to decarbonize that piece, that product or that supply chain.
What brands are you working with, or can you say?
I will not say on the specifics.
Can you comment on how big these brands are? Are they world known, like really well known brands?
I'm happy to say that very large sneaker apparel providers are partners with Avery Dennison.
I mean, you're an $8 billion company, so you must be working with some big customers.
With some big customers, yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, Neil, hey, incredible story there. Thanks very much for telling it. And thanks for meeting with us here at World Economic Forum.
Pleasure, thank you.
All right, one thing I didn't see, except for some still pictures, was some of the panels they had. And I know Nestle was involved. I know IBM. I know they had a refi panel as well. So I hope they actually have those panels come out so we can watch them in the weeks to come. But we also had a fair amount of media coverage. What do you think about the media coverage we saw coming out?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we haven't seen the demos yet. I think some are going to be uploaded, so that'll be good for us to see ourselves. But there were the journals out there watching it live. We had Cointelegraph come out with some reporting, both on Solid World DAO from Tolam Earth as well, and also our presence there. We had CoinDesk, I believe they did an interview with our new CFO at Hedera. We had Wes get on a Twitter Spaces with Refi for CoinDesk with MN who's the CEO of Avalanche. We had one of the young global leaders at the Africa House was there as well for the WEF. We also had lots of different sort of ecosystem projects within Refi, and a lot of them touting HBAR, which is great to hear. Hedera, the Hedera Guardian, etc. So yeah, in terms of Web3, we had Cointelegraph and we had CoinDesk, which is the best we could ask for. Those are the two major news reporting stations. But alongside that, we had the Washington Post do some coverage. We had Politico come out with one of their publications where they not only linked the Lehman Baird BBC interview, but they also spoke about Paolo's from the UCL board about his new research report on the information I just said earlier about the environmental efficiency of Hedera. So we've spearheaded both Web3 and Web2 news media. So I'm really excited to see more people from both industries paying attention.
Yeah, I think and in addition just to the media coverage, I think there's a lot of real business going on there as well. From what I saw from Zenobia, it sounds like there was a lot that was actually done there. Some of the things that we saw come out of it was WiseKey signed an agreement with the Swiss Hashgraph Association, so it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of that. And then I also saw something about UDPN, the Advanced Digital Currency Payments Project. And this is from several entities that are coming out of the World Economic Forum. But one of the things that caught my eye is Toko and DLA Piper are involved. Now, I'm not sure exactly what they're doing with it, if they are leveraging Hedera. Now, I know the backbone of Toko is Hedera, so I'd hope that they are using Hedera, but they also said that Red Date Technologies is also involved, and they were instrumental in the blockchain project, the official state-backed blockchain project coming out of China. So we'll see what comes out of that, but it's something that I'm going to watch really closely. And I think the best way to wrap up our Davos coverage is Max Walker-Williams. He was there the entire time. As you mentioned, he covered some Atma.io stuff, but he was putting out content all week. And he had some good closing thoughts. I think he was recording it on his way home from Davos. But let's listen to what he had to say.
I've had a lot of time to think while driving from the UK to Davos and back. And one of the things that's becoming more and more apparent to me is how bad we humans are at predicting growth and predicting the future. And so if you plant a Hedera ivy seed in the ground and watch it, you'll not see anything happen for a month. And then one day, there's a small little sprout that comes out of the ground. And then a couple of days later, it's got 2 tiny little leaves. And so it's taken over a month for this small little ivy to grow out of the ground and grow 2 little leaves. But now it's got those 2 little leaves, it only takes another day for it to grow another 2 little leaves, and the first 2 little leaves have got a little bit bigger. And so now you've got 4 leaves that are bigger than the first 2 leaves to absorb all the sun's energy and help it grow. And so the next day, it's doubled, and it's got 8 leaves. And now that it's got double the amount of surface area to grow and absorb the sun's energy, it can grow twice as quick. And so in half a day, it's got another 8 leaves. And when you come back after a week, that tiny little shoot is 1 meter long, and it's got huge leaves and loads of them. And then you come back the next day and it's 2.5 meters long, and then 5 meters long. And before you know it, and I've actually seen this happen as a property developer, an investor, and a father, we see this throughout nature. And so we tend to measure things by what we first see, and it takes a month to see those first 2 tiny little green leaves, and that's a long time for a small thing to happen. And we apply that time frame to the entire life of the ivy, but that isn't how real life works. And that is what's really, really magical about compounding. Einstein said that compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world, and he was absolutely right. And so if you keep doubling, very quickly you take over an entire field, the entire world, and an entire industry. And that's what I've witnessed at Davos this week. Because it probably took the team at a Hedera so much time to, well, first for Lehman to invent, to discover the hash graph, and then further years to test it, develop it, and have it ready to show the world. And then years and months to get the first governing council member. But then you've got them that makes getting the second one easier. And not just get easier, but also you've got another leaf, another person going out and talking about Hedera Hashgraph, and all of the people that are in Google talking about Hedera Hashgraph. And then you have 2, so it doubles. You have 2 governing council members. And then other big businesses look and they say, wow, those are 2 big names. And those big names are talking about Hedera Hashgraph, and they're using the system, and they're exposing their customers to it. Then you have 3, and then 4, and then 8, and then 16. And all of this compounds until you hit a tipping point. Once you hit that tipping point, you're no longer going out trying to sell Hedera, trying to explain why it's such a fantastic technology. You have people knocking down your door. And we are at a critical moment with Hedera Hashgraph, where the price, in my opinion, of a HBAR does not reflect in any way the value of the token. And the network is getting closer and closer every day, quicker and quicker, to that incredible tipping point. And I am so excited when we hit that tipping point.
So Zep, of course, Max is always a great ambassador for Hedera, and of course he's building in the space as well. He recorded that, as I said, on his way home, and his insights were, of course, fantastic. So you also mentioned Solid World. Can you give us some insights on that?
So Solid World, they were on the regenerative finance panel at the Hedera House And they're basically, as an institution, what they do is they sort of vet carbon projects early on. They look for the ones that seem the most successful, and then they try and give them financing. And so as a part of that, what they're creating are these AMMs, these sort of deep liquidity pools, using the Hedera Guardian, using the way that on the Guardian you can get very high quality carbon credits, all on Ledger, all transparent. But they're creating the first carbon forwards pool on, I think on DLT actually. And a carbon forward is essentially the same as a futures in commodities, I believe. It's a way of sort of getting this early financing at an agreed future rate, so that these early projects, they don't just die within the first few months if they can't get all the financing they need. So it's a way of really helping these early stage carbon projects who are in refi, regenerative finance, to get them on their feet and, doing what we really need to be doing, which is creating these carbon credits. So that's the first of its kind, I think, on DLC. It's definitely the first of its kind of this quality with the Guardian, of course. So I'll be interested to learn more about them. I'll be interested to learn if the ARMS, i.e. the automated regression market maker that was created with object computing, I'll be interested if that's implemented down the line. But for now, I think it's the AMMs you get on sort of MetaMask, these kind of places. Sort of Uniswap, SushiSwap, etc. So yeah, very excited to see where that goes. That's another big ESG piece, or rather sustainability piece for Hedera, and it fits in well with the WEF presence. So yeah, bigger. It just keeps expanding that ecosystem, and Wes and Co are doing a fantastic job there.
Yeah, no question about that. And there was actually some other big news that came out this week. I was actually doing a Twitter space on Tuesday, and we had the guys from Upside DAO come on, and they were explaining some things around, how tokens work and the legalities around it. And I called them Upside DAO because that's what they called themselves in the past. But now they're calling themselves Upside Cooperative, because that's really what a DAO is. But what were your thoughts about what came out around their white paper?
Well, I mean, it's obviously got a lot of traction. I mean, they created this white paper with KPMG and Oric, KPMG being a massive company and Oric being massive in its own rights. Mm-hmm. And so they had that co-authorship there, which is a huge stamp of legitimacy. So much so that the global blockchain leader at Ernst & Young also came out tweeting it and saying, are cooperatives the best way for DAOs to establish their legal footprint? Mm-hmm. And he goes on to say it's a very interesting white paper from Oric, from Upside CoOp, and the team there. So very excited to see that institutional support on such a grandiose sort of scale, i.e. the caliber of people supporting it, the teams behind it, and it really, it looks like this could be a serious piece of infrastructure for other projects on other chains. They've made clear that this is a cross-chain project, but that it's directly leveraging Hedera. So I assume the HCS probably plays a part in there somewhere. I'm assuming this. I haven't really delved too deeply into it. But I mean, imagine that if it takes off in other communities as well as the legal way to form a DAO, essentially, and it leverages the HCS, then that could be a whirlwind of adoption for us.
Yeah, and just to give some more context, that's the Upside DAO team is the same team behind Hashgraph naming service. So everybody knows them. A lot of people use them. We mention them every week when we talk about our NFTs. So, they're around in other parts of our ecosystem, but making some big waves in other spaces as well.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the Hashgraph name team have been delivering, continuing to deliver. We saw that they'd set up this sort of Web3 alliance for DNS Alliance, Domain Name Services, with Unstoppable Domain, which are the main team for Ethereum, the main sort of DNS provider in Web3. And so they've just partnered with Hashgraph Name officially, with Hashpack as well. And, I don't know if it's fully integrated yet. I think there's certain things you can get, like pins, where you get like a pin of a dead pixel through Unstoppable Domains, i.e. the NFT project. And so, yeah, we'll learn more about that over time. There was a good Spaces yesterday that I need to catch up on, which you can find on their Hashgraph Names Twitter account. But yeah, that's again a massive seal of approval for their team, but also the Hedera ecosystem. So yeah, great job, Nostradamus and the team over there.
Yeah, no question. There's so many good, talented teams working in the space. And another one is the team from Bank Social. And I got John Wingate on to talk about his new HBAR on-ramp and also his stablecoin, native stablecoin on the Hedera network. So let's listen to that. John, you're doing so much in the Hedera space, including launching your own stablecoin called Rivia, but you have a new announcement this week that the Hedera community might be interested in. What is it?
Well, we are going to be listing HBAR on our Bank Social exchange. So with credit card, debit card, you're now able to buy through the Bank Social exchange HBAR. We've gone out and we've looked pretty much across the board at cost, price of the token, and we're several percentage points lower than the entire market on that. So we're very excited to be able to bring this to the HBAR community. We've picked up a bunch of HBAR fans who also now are Bank Social fans as well, and we think they're going to benefit tremendously from the opportunity here to self-custody out the gate versus a lot of these other exchanges not allowing to do that.
Okay, so you can just buy it with a credit card and then it goes straight to your wallet?
Yeah, exactly. We even figured out, so I've been working with the Swirlds team. We even, for people who aren't versed in or have their own HBAR wallet, so a lot of our community doesn't have an HBAR wallet. So we created an on-the-fly paper wallet, cold storage wallet that can be spun up. We go out, we create an account, we associate all of our tokens. So we associate Rivia to your account automatically. We give you an account ID, and then you have your paper wallet with your mnemonic, and we send you your tokens, within a few seconds, or your coins within a few seconds. So it's really cool. We think a lot of people are going to really like it.
Very cool. So you mentioned Rivia, that's your stable coin, and that's going to be, one of the first stable coins that are native to Hedera. Do you want to give us an update on that as well?
Oh yeah. That's been going really great. We've been talking with a few of the DEXs. There's been a little bit of a delay. I know that we had to change and we talked about this early on, we had to change our fee structure. So we went from a flat fee structure to a percentage fee structure. Actually ended up working better for us because we're able to pick up nano transactions now. So, a lot of the developed world doesn't really think in nano transactions. I think that's going to start to become a huge part of ecosystems. That's why we've picked Hedera specifically, because of that less than a penny, or less than a tenth of a penny if you're using native HTS transactions. So, for us, being able to do nano transactions with people like BMW, Mercedes, that are starting to do real-time fee sharing with customers is going to be a major, major use case in the future of kind of where we believe decentralized ledgers, especially on something like Hedera, is going to move.
So you mentioned, the fee structure. Now, normally stable coins, they make their money on taking in as much cash as possible and then putting it into short-term T-bills and things like that. And that's where they get their cash. But you actually have a fee structure and you keep the cash a lot safer. Can you explain that real quick?
Yeah, so we're the only stable coin that's doing a one-to-one in a credit union account. So we distribute our liquidity across, tens or hundreds of credit union accounts. As the liquidity grows, we've got an algorithm that tells us how many credit unions we need to be at, or institutions we need to be at in general. And because of that, because we're not taking that and putting it into any type of short-term treasury or bond or any type of illiquid type of account, that in the event that everybody on chain wants their dollar back, some of these coins can't do it. Mm-hmm. Well, we'll be able to do it. And because we're working with the nonprofit credit union industry, we're able to facilitate that. The only way we make our, if you want to call it revenue, the only way we monetize it so we can keep the network going is with super tiny, less than a fraction of a penny transactions. It doesn't matter if you're sending 10 cents or $1 or you're sending $1 million. We just capture a super small fragment of that. And we believe, based on everything we're seeing, that that's the optimal route to go, just because the way the legislation is panning out, the way people I know that you've seen, we won't mention names of stable coins. There have been stable coins that have been depegged because people have found out. I mean, I think recently, as a few weeks ago, Binance came out and said that they've been under collateralized on their BSD coin at several points in time. And so we don't want to experience any of that. We don't want to rely on, having to fake amounts so that we can make sure we're staying in the green by paying ourselves with our own stable coin, all that kind of stuff. So we're staying with a super small fractions of a penny. It'll be in addition to you're already paying, if you're on Hedera on HTS, you're already paying 0.0001 for a transaction. And so to make it 0.0002 or 0.0003, you're really talking about insignificant amounts here. And really, it's just to ensure that we have a way to keep the ecosystem running.
Yeah, makes perfect sense to me. John, again, thank you so much for everything that you're doing in this space, and good luck.
Thank you for everything you do in the space, Brandon. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
So it's always good to listen to John Wingate and what he has to say. He's working in all areas of the Hedera ecosystem. So again, it's good to hear. And we're hitting on all cylinders right now. We have some major influencers also covering the Hedera space. We had BitBoy interview Lehman, and I think he did a fantastic job. So what were your thoughts on the Lehman interview with BitBoy?
Yeah, I mean, it's, obviously BitBoy comes with his drama around him. But there's no doubt about it that he is a very vocal and very big voice in the Web3 space. And I think the sort of contagion effects of having someone like that cover of us, there's a huge pool of people that listen to him every day that perhaps aren't familiar with Hedera because it hasn't been in the previous bull run in the narrative of the influencers. But this has come around completely organically, I might add. Obviously there's nothing paid here. This was BitBoy finding Hedera, finding interesting in Hedera, and wanting to reach out and put Lehman on a big platform. And I think, Lehman is obviously like our golden egg, one of our golden eggs, the genius behind the hash graph. And he has, to date, obviously a lot of people have come across him, but he hasn't had that real sort of introduction to the perhaps more Web3 native, perhaps more degen sort of natured side. And I think that is obviously, some people are a bit hesitant, but I think all in all, Lehman got some great points out there, some good questions from Ben, and it is great of Ben to have supported us like this, and I'm sure it'll do great things for spreading the word of HBAR and Hedera.
Yeah, Lehman definitely expertly navigates the questions and makes sure he keeps it politically correct, but makes sure he gets the information out as well. So since we were talking about the high volume use case earlier, let's go ahead and take a look at Metrica and get into the details of what we're seeing today. So over the past 24 hours, we have 43.36 million transactions. We've been humming along between 250 and 650 transactions per second. And not to be ignored, again, those smart contracts, I keep an eye on those because they're fairly high value transactions. They're still sitting up at about 20,000 transactions over the past 24. And as far as transactions over the past week, we're sitting at 330 million transactions over the past week. To put that in context, that's 10% of all the transactions that have ever been processed on the Hedera network have been processed within the last 7 days. Time to consensus, as I mentioned, there's some additional volatility there, but average time to consensus over the past 24 hours is 3 1/3 seconds. But what's good to see is right now we're averaging just above 2 seconds. So like Lehman has said in the past, it's hitting the limits of what's possible on a DLT network that has nodes throughout the entire world. So as far as account growth, of course, we had that huge spike from Lithos at the beginning of the month. But from December to January, we've seen a new plateau. So in the end of December, we were seeing averages of, between 1,000 and 1,500 accounts being created per day. And now that's more like 3,000 or 4,000 accounts being created per day. So that's good to see. And taking a look at our fungible token summary, again, we have Energy Trade Token there at the top. We have Sauce, Wrapped HBAR, Dovu, USDC, and HBAR X all in the top 10, showing our DeFi ecosystem is still doing well. And we go down to our non-fungible tokens. We have Hashgraph Name Service still in the top 10. We have Wizards, Pixel Drops, Zombies, ElfU, and of course, Earthling's doing a pretty good job in the top 10 as well. Any thoughts as far as NFTs in the last week, Zep?
So we had Michael Mumbauer, he sort of contextualized the Ashfall stuff in the Hedera gaming space, which everyone should definitely check out. We're going to be hearing more about that soon, I'm sure, which I'm very excited about. In terms of, I saw there was like a Hedera yacht club, I believe, that was doing quite well. I think they're sort of like a doxed, like yachting kind of club. It's similar to like the Bored Ape Yacht Club kind of thing, but for Hedera, which is quite cool in itself. I haven't delved in there, but they were doing very well on Zeus markets. You've got the usual suspects performing very well, but also the LG Art Lab have come out, with the announcement of a new artist, I believe, on the platform, but also that I believe the Barry X Ball campaign will be reignited this approaching Monday. So we'll hopefully hear more about that then. Hopefully they'll get some good feedback support there from the HBAR variants. But yeah, exciting to see the LG Art Lab there again, sort of with their relaunch, and I hope it goes well.
Yeah, no question about that. We are trying to put an interview together with their team, so I'm looking forward to it. All right, so we'll go ahead and get into DeFi. All right, so the big news, of course, is the move in HBAR, but we're going to get into that in a little bit. So looking at Saucer Swap, we have a total value locked of $29.3 million. And looking at their farming rewards on some of their popular trading pairs, HBAR USDC is at 62%, HBAR Sauce is at 40%, and HBAR X is at 13.6%. And with the bump in prices, of course, volume has gone up as well, and that helps with the LP rewards. And of course, the LP rewards are on top of the farming rewards. For USDC HBAR, we're sitting at 30%, Sauce HBAR is sitting at 2.4%, and HBAR X is at 1.88%. HeliSwap has also seen a bump in total value locked and is at just about $6.4 million. And moving on to their farming rewards, both USDC Ohm and HBAR Ohm are sitting at just about 60%. USDC HBAR is also sitting at about 60%, and HBAR X is sitting at 12.5%. And I certainly don't want to forget about Pangolin. It's a DEX that originally was on Avalanche. They're going to continue on Avalanche, but they're going to be adding another DEX on Hedera as well. And that's supposed to come out on January 24th. We don't know the exact time yet, but they told us to stay tuned. No big changes when it comes to Stater, our liquid staking solution, with a total value locked of 1.3 billion HBAR, an APY at 8.5%, so about 2% over what you'd get from native HBAR staking. And now let's get into the hot topic for the day, the HBAR and crypto markets. HBAR is outperforming significantly across the board, up almost 43% on the week and almost 20% over the past 24 hours, and is currently sitting at about 6.8 cents. Compare that to Bitcoin, which has also had a good week, is sitting at 13.3% over the past week and 2% over the past 24 hours. And taking a look at the charts, we haven't seen these numbers going all the way back to September. If we do see a pullback, which I wouldn't be surprised to see, I'd expect to see some support around 6.3 to 6.4 cents, and then again maybe around 5.8 cents. And if we keep going on this run, I'd expect to see some resistance at 7.4 cents and then all the way up at 8 cents. Earlier this week, the rest of the risk asset complex was struggling a bit, so stocks and things like that, but crypto held up fairly well, and of course, as mentioned, HBAR outperformed. But today we got an extra boost as the rest of the risk assets like stocks went up significantly. Is there anything else you'd like to pass on to the community?
Yeah, I think, we've always been waiting for the step function for a long time. And what it really is it's a seal of approval in everything that the HBAR variants have been said for an external investor or an external head looking in. And so we've clearly seen this sort of combination of what the step function, perhaps the BitBoy effect, but also the Davos effect that have sort of come together for this sort of golden trifecta for us. And it seems that the markets realize that, the markets acknowledge that, taking it on. And so I'd like to think that we've have this amazing council. We've also got more members to come, but we've also got transactions on Ledger that we can point at to show real world utility at scale. We're the first Ledger to really prove that we can handle that throughput at scale. And, hopefully that now means that other big enterprises will look at us and go, okay, the proof is in the pudding. It's like, they're not just saying it. They're not just touting it. They're not just shilling it. Here it is. Here are the ledgers. Here's the ledger. Here's the transactions. Here's the payment. So yeah, I think really these three things have come together for us, and the momentum behind us right now feels brilliant. So yeah, the wind is very much in our sails. It feels great. There's a fantastic momentum behind us. As we know, there's more GC members to come at some point. There's new use cases to come out. We've got our eyes on the coupon bureau, this kind of stuff. So yeah, really excited how, we're on January the 20th, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's like I just can't comprehend how fast this month's gone, how much has gone through it. I mean, yeah, I think it's probably definitely our best month on record. Well, undoubtedly our best month on record across the boards. TPS, accounts, presence, news coverage, announcements, fantastic. So what a glorious way to start January.
Well, Zep, that's pretty much all we have. If anybody wants to listen to some additional content, I just did an interview with Uphold, so check that out. Certainly check out the BitBoy interview with Lehman Barrett as well. We did that Twitter space with the gaming space for Hedera, so check that one out. Next week, we're going to be doing FinTech, so listen into that Twitter space. That's going to be at 1800 on Tuesday. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you next week.